Coast, there are 20 partners in 14 countries who are working through 10 case studies to develop a proactive approach for communities to enable societal transformation. The concept of helping communities to transition is not new. Rob Hopkins published a book in 2008 to promote transition towns, albeit for energy rather than biodiversity. Both the centre-left and centre-right governments at that time favoured green transition. There was no political bias in this. The next slide would be right, I think. And probably the next one after that. The European Sustainable Use Group, ESUG, worked in 2008 to 2011 to show that with guidance and motivation, local communities could gather local data on species and habitats good enough for model-based local planning and personal land management. Collating the detailed data centrally was useful too, so the data could be exchanged for guidance and decision support, a bottom-up and top-down exchange process. ESUG proposed building multilingual networking software to host such an exchange to benefit decision makers centrally and at local level. That's the book on the right. But the idea did not root. In the meantime, the need for improved guidance on the environment by those who elect central decision makers has become clearer. Green transition is more urgent and less politically neutral now. Next slide, please. In ProCoast, European Commission requires development of a community sustainability platform. This coincides with IPBES recommendations of monitoring, evaluation, learning and decision support tools. You can see at the bottom of this diagram. And this diagram was the last in a report on environmental interlinkages, which accompanied one on transformative change in 2024. ESUG is responsible for running a tool providing CUSP until 2033. That's 10 years from the start of the project. Tools will be not only for helping manage local environments and resources for ecological sustainability, but also to encourage transitions to sustainability using behavioural science. In today's first webinar in the series, Anne-Marie Nienaber and Irene Theodorakopoulou will present behavioural tools. In the second seminar on 18th February, a socio-environmental tool will be explained, and the CUSP itself will be explained on the 18th of March. Thank you very much. Over to Irene and Anne-Marie.
Well, hello everyone. Perline, would you like to share your screen?
Yep. We'll share now. Okay. Okay. Here it is.
Yeah. Okay, so in this webinar, we will introduce our ideas about the Deep Change Framework. This framework will integrate some approaches, or what we call them theories, but they are mainly approaches, culture and theory for addressing complex change. Next, please. So, as Robert said, ProCoast is about coastal communities and coastal projects. Well, many coastal projects have a lot of excellent technical solutions. The key point is that at the end, the struggle to scale and transform behavior. So, why this happens? Well, first of all, a technical change is not always a social change. Second, participation in community activities or in incorporating technical solutions, it's not about transformation. And of course, this is always something that we have to deal with, that when projects end, then behaviors may revert. So how do we do it? How do we enable change to be deep and shared and durable in systems such as coastal systems that are very complex? Well, the idea is that the deep change model combines methodologies that introduced structured change management into a system together with reflective and participatory processes. Next, please, Berlin. If we are to identify the three main principles of change, we can say that the first one is that the change is based on relationships before it becomes technical. And by relations and relationships, I mean that trust should be present, roles matter, even as much, maybe sometimes even more than proposed solutions because of power dynamics. Then the second principle is that change is not a linear process. So if we have a linear planning, then we are about to fail. We need iteration, we need feedback loops, we need to get informed about what went wrong and what went right, and incorporate this into our current situation. The third principle, a very important one, is that people should be able, when they participate in a process, to see the results of this participation. And this means that they have to see the impact of their actions and their suggestions. Next one, please. So change. We talk about change and transformation. We use them, they mean the same or maybe not. But we think of change as, or the process of change as an iceberg. And this is what the core problem theory U addresses. So what is the iceberg problem? That 10% of the iceberg is above the water and 90% below it, which means that most systems observe and change at the surface, while deeper assumptions or mental models or patterns or structures that are beneath or underneath the waterline remain untouched. What we usually do is that we download old solutions. We don't listen as much as we are supposed to, but we listen selectively. And when there is a problem, we act in a hurry to fix it. Next, please, Perlin. So in a nutshell, theory U, it's called U because of the U shape of the process, is about moving from the download situation to a transformation situation on the other side without making this leap, going down and then going up again. So the down part is about learning and the upper part is about doing. If I had to say two things about theory U, it would be that first, it shifts attention from past habits, things that we used to do in the past, and it creates a focused attention to a new future, which is plausible, not a future that we want, but we can never reach, okay? Something that we can't do. So all you need to remember is that theory U is about learning to shift our attention to whatever matters. Next, please, Berlin. So now, why we say that we will use theory U in a model that it's a meta-theoretical model that incorporates also Kotter's processes. So first of all, because deep change is not only about what we do, it's about what we do with others, what we decide together with others, and how we listen to ourselves and also to others. This is the problem why many change processes fail, not because we don't have enough technical or other solutions, managerial or whatever solutions, but because we don't have a shared understanding of the situation. We don't understand what the dynamics of each situation is, and then we rush to action without taking these dynamics into consideration. So this is why Theory U and where Theory U comes into play. Of course, it has its limits, and this is why we need to complement it with a different process, a different theory. First of all, it lacks some, let's say, standard methods in evaluating outcomes. Okay, so we have a process, but because of the character, the inner character of these processes, it is hard to evaluate and move to the next level. Also, I have seen through the years that I've been working with Theory U that there is a limited incorporation of power dynamics. So all change partners tend to be considered relatively equal in change processes, while, as we all know, this is not the case. So next slide, please, Perlin. So Anne-Marie, would you like to take us now through the Kotter model? Thank you.
Yes, of course. So here you see the Kotter model that we applied within the case studies in ProCoast, the structural side of the model. So you can see 8 different steps. I will dive into the different steps a bit deeper in the following. So we're starting with setting the stage, which means we have to create urgency, the team and the vision. We then move to the part of engaging with the key stakeholder groups to really make the change visible to others. And then in the end, step 7 and 8 is about sustaining the behavioral change in the community. Berlin, could you just move slides, please? Oh. So here you see that's just the picture of setting the stage and creating a sense of urgency. So first of all, most is important that within the cases you work with, the urgency is really being seen. From our experiences over more than 10, 15 years now, there's always an issue with that everybody is convinced that there has to be a change. So first of all, we have to ensure that everybody is aware of the fact that we have urgency in place, that we really need change to start. We move slides, please, Berlin. So the second step then is really about putting the right team together. This is very, very crucial. So what we do is usually we take an approach to change agents, means we identify within our case studies one key person that is our responsible key person that we have a close relationship with. That might be 1, it might be 2 or 3 local change agents that work directly with us. So we have the issue, of course, in terms of languages. We're talking English. We don't speak maybe sometimes the native languages, just by chance, of course. And that makes it so important that you first have local change agents identified that understand the situation, also able to talk with you. And these key change agents also need a strong position within the case. They need expertise and high credibility by others, because these local change agents work as gatekeepers for a broader community. So they are the mediators between us from a project side to help to transform change, and then everything that has happened at the bottom, so within the case studies. So this is our model we work towards. something like local change agents that work as gatekeepers in a role that they really are able to communicate what we discuss to the local level, to the stakeholders within each case study. Can we move to the next slide, please? So that is stage 3 and 4. So we have to develop and communicate the change vision. That sounds always very easy, but it's very, very hard. Because first of all, you have to read within your case study or within your community on a vision that really aligns the different expectations you have to deal with. There's different stakeholder groups with different goals, with different beliefs, with different values involved. And your task is done as a change agent, first of all, with our help to create a vision that really is shared by all of the stakeholder groups involved within your community. And then you have to ensure that this vision is being seen by others, meaning it doesn't help when you have a lovely vision, but nobody knows about it. So you really have to communicate that. And that needs you need really support from your stakeholders within your community to distribute and to communicate the vision you're working towards. And you will see that there's always fear and anger and resistance involved because people do not like to change. They are really keeping their old ways of doing and are rather hesitant to do something new. So this means you have a lot of discussions, you have a lot of debates, and you have to talk to people. Because when people tell you they don't want, you have to understand it. You have to understand the drivers behind it. That's what we are very much interested in ProCoast, to understand the values and attitudes of people, to understand why they behave in a way they do. And very important from our experience is that you really acknowledge people's pain, because change means you have to learn new things. You have to deal with uncomfortable relationships maybe, and that means there is some pain. Maybe there is losses, maybe there's anger, but you really have to convince people that this is urgent and that is something that is needed. Of course, there's always the 10% that you won't achieve, but there's 90% you're able to deal with and that you can convince with really communicating your vision in the right way. Okay, can we move slides, please, Pullen? So we come to stage 5 then, which is about the empowerment to act. Very important, and we brought some nice pictures with you because that's how it works. You really have to develop a shared sense of purpose within your community. It means bring the people together, ideally face to face, because that is really useful. Try to align the structures within your community with the vision, with your goals. You need something that helps you to achieve a shared goal. That means maybe think about guidelines, rules, management plans. That can be easy rules, like, we are meeting with a key stakeholder group maybe every 3 months just to see where we are, whether we make progress, what has been done in the meantime. A similar approach we take within ProCoast in the way that we have bilateral meetings from time to time. We schedule once so that we know there is meetings popping up and that we will talk about this project and what we were able to achieve in the meantime. Furthermore, very important, start to train stakeholder groups members. So what is needed? Do they need more skills? Do they need maybe some more motivation ideas? So within the meetings, really try to speak very transparently, being very honest with yourself and with others. And if there is something you can't deal with, then you really have to announce it and to say it so that all together can think about a solution that may work in the future. Please, can we move to step 6? So, and then step 6 is then really about thinking, how can you celebrate short-term wins? Because change means it's a long, long way to go, similar to what you see on the right-hand corner here. And while you were walking towards the change, you always the feeling that it didn't feel like much at the time. But when you really compare where you were able or where you have been a while ago to today, sometimes, and not just sometimes, I think most of the cases that I worked with were able to achieve a massive improvement. But you should celebrate this. So when you have achieved a little tiny step, like one event, like maybe you were able to convince a stakeholder group to work with you, then we celebrate the short-term win, because that keeps you motivated, that keeps your team motivated, and that keeps others motivated to see, oh, something really happened. We were able to take a step forward, and that makes you keeping the momentum and helping you to go on and to climb up the long, long ladder that is important to be climbed up when you really want to achieve change, and that not just the structural one, but the behavioral one. Can we move to step 7 and 8, please? So on this slide, you just see the don't let up and make it stick part of the change, which is very important. And the ones that you really have to think about, because this is about really thinking, okay, how can we really keep this change that we were achieved for the long run? That means you always have to think about how can we establish, for example, meetings with the different stakeholder groups, that we're always thinking about the vision that we once designed, whether we're still trying to achieve it, or whether we have to change maybe sometimes the vision and to go another way. We really have always to acknowledge the stakeholder groups that work with us. And we have always to provide tools and training really to reinforce new behaviors. We really have to make them stick. And reinforce and reward of these behaviors is something that is really needed. And sometimes it's very helpful when you start to acknowledge them, maybe with the help of social media or media in general, just to show people that this new behaviors is something that really helps everybody and that we want to make stick. Okay, we move slides, Berlin. So that's the part of the structured part, as Irene already said. We need these clear steps. We need the momentum through short-term wins. We need the coordination in this complex system, because otherwise we can't really show accountability. And we have to have responsibilities organized, meaning everybody needs his roles. But, and that's why Theory U is so important, structure alone is not enough. This idea of reflection on action all over the place, the idea that we really have to change the mental models, the thinking of people, the attitudes, their behavior, that is important. And that is not being achieved just with structural change. We really have to overcome obstacles, and we need compliance without commitment is not working. So when we really want to achieve something huge, then we have to think about the combination of a structured approach like the Kotter approach in combination with a deep thinking model like the idea of Theory U. Can we move slides, please, Berlin? So that is how Theory U and Kotter come now together. So while Kotter changes what people do, Theory U really thinks about changes how people think and see. And Kotter really focuses on the structures of the processes, while Theory U really, the idea is to transform mental models, so the thinking of people. While Kotter focuses on action, Theory U really focuses on acting together. And while making change stick with Kotter's model, Theory U really approaches to makes transformation possible. So we really have to bring these both together, because that allows us to not just structurally transform something, but really to change the minds of people. If you can move slides, please. So, and that's why we call it the deep change model. That is what we are interested in, this hybrid model, combining Theory U with the Kotter idea. And that's what we developed over a long, long time ago. So this framework integrates on the one side the inner transformation, the mindset, the relationship, the values, without the transformation, with the steps, the coordination, the outcomes. And that makes us thinking that, or let's say that is our slogan. We always say that change that sticks needs structure, but also soul. And how this works, we can see in the next slide. Because that's a visualization of the model, how it may look like. You see Kotter's idea with a structured approach, but you also see that we tried always to incorporate the thinking of theory with co-initiating, co-sensing, with presenting, with always these reflection processes, lots of co-creation that we do together with the cases to really allow them to include their insights within the process, because every case study is so specific that needs more attention than just following a structured approach. It means we need the reflection, the information from the bottom to understand how we really can treat change in the way that it will stick for long. And if we can move to the next slide, and we see a lovely overview how we think that these both ideas really ensure complementary power. And everything that I just mentioned to you, the combination of the inner and the outer transformation, really aligns mindset shift with action and momentum. The idea of blends deep sense making with pragmatic, sustained execution. The idea of builds broad ownership and agency. We merge empathy and execution for durable change. That is ideal for case studies. That is real people, that is dynamic systems, and that is long-term cultural change. And that is what we are totally convinced of might be something that works in the future. And when we move to the next slide, we will now hear a bit from one of our case studies we work with, which is the Malta case. But before they start, some impressions we got already from our different cases. As Robert said at the beginning, we're working with 9 different cases. After our work, so after 2 years around, we got statements, and I brought just 2 with us here. Something like, I was impressed by the creativity in some of the engagement strategies. It made me think about how I could adopt these ideas to my own work. Or this exercise really helped me clarify my next steps. It's one thing to have ideas, but putting them into a structured plan makes all the difference. So you really see we're engaging with people, we're trying to give them an idea of how they can achieve a structured process and how they can show afterwards what they were able to create, what the impact has been, while we really dive into the mindsets and trying really to include the idea of changing values, attitudes, and in the end, behaviors of people. And how this hopefully works will be now shown by Malta. And I hope Annelies is with us so that we can move slides and dive a bit deeper to give you an idea of how it has been perceived by one of our case studies.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Hear you. Okay. I will share screen. That's okay.
Okay.
So just to let you know, I hope our internet works, because we're just coming out of Storm Harry in the central Mediterranean, and our internet has been a bit, let's say, unstable today, but hopefully it will be fine. So I'm just trying to share screen here. So I just wanted to share a few slides on our case study, which is on a small island on Comino. Can you see the screen yet?
Not yet. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's working now.
Works? Okay, thank you. So yes, our case study is on the little island of Comino in Malta. I think these days we have, these 2 days have given us the chance to really appreciate our coast, because we've had this massive storm, and unfortunately a lot of damage was done. So people are talking a lot about the coast now, and hopefully we'll remember to plan better for the future. So the Maltese Islands in the center of the Mediterranean are 3 main islands, and Comino is the little one in between the 2 bigger islands. It only has 2 residents on it, and it's less than 4 kilometers squared, but you'd be surprised how many conflicts there are on this little island, and how many difficulties arise. But On the other hand, it's also a very important ecological site, a protected area, and has a rich biodiversity in it, both in terms of breeding birds, but also its flora, and also a very important place for migrating birds. So just to mention a few of the issues on this little island, which is literally overrun by tourism, not just in summer now, but throughout most of the year. So summer has become like almost an 8-month affair in Malta. So there's constant visitors to the site. Unfortunately, focusing especially on one area, which is the most popular, what is known as the Blue Lagoon. And this little island will soon have a hotel rebuilt on it, quite a large hotel, as well as an area with villas, which has raised a lot of conflict. And in fact, there's been a lot of protests from not just environmentalists this time, but from a lot of Maltese, because being from one of the most densely populated countries in the world, we have very little place where we can find nature, where we can find some peace. Of course, with a lot of over-tourism, you get a lot of trampling. There's a huge problem of litter everywhere, both underwater and along the coast. And of course, that will attract animals like rats, who in turn are then a big threat to breeding birds on site. Then, of course, all the other side effects you get with over-tourism, so a lot of noise, a lot of light pollution, the litter we mentioned, which is both organic litter, but also a lot of plastics. And you also get a lot of erosion because, if you know, Malta has very little soil cover, so it's mostly limestone areas. Still, they host very important vegetation in that little soil we have, but it also means that erosion is much faster and results in the loss of a lot of habitats in a very quick way. To counteract all this, we have started a project. Il Forn ta' Camuna translates literally into the bakery of Comino. And it's a project where we're trying to restore the only bakery that used to be on the island, because the island before had a much larger population living there. And this used to supply the bread for all the area. And we're trying to counteract some of the impacts, the negative impacts there, by creating a small interpretation center, which will also be a place where you can learn more about nature, have more of a silent place to retreat, and a place for activities to become more aware of the nature and all the heritage that is found on Comino. So that is in our direct project, but then we're not just focusing on the bakery, of course. We have long had a vision for Comino, so at least I would say the past 30 years, where we've seen the need to reduce the impact of over-tourism, but especially plan better and manage the site better in terms of conservation and habitat restoration. So this is the old bakery. So it's a small building, which would be a bit further away from the main touristic site, but would be a place to provide also and a good explanation on why we need to protect Comino and why this is so important. And one of the first stakeholders we engaged was the only resident of one of the only two residents, Salvo here. So he's been on board with us for quite a while and has helped a lot as well with works on site, and has always been present. And it's very important for him to be involved in this, being practically the only two residents of the island here. We moved to then different levels of stakeholders. So this last year we had the tourism minister on the island, and changing the tourism strategy is one of the most important things we need for the island, because it has so far been marketed a lot as a party island. And for that to change, we need also the vision of the authorities to change, to better protect this area. So we had him on site to understand also what we're doing, but also the difficulties we have. And then we've held numerous workshops and activities on the island itself, but also in other places where we met with residents, different communities, and especially youths. And there were a lot of brainstorming sessions to come up also with alternatives, with some creative ideas for this island, which has been stuck a bit, let's say, and forgotten for quite a while. So we've done a lot of nature walks, and this is something we do continuously. And even the place has now become our main area for hosting camps, especially youth camps and activist camps. And this is also the best place where the youths can also then come up with ideas for changing the situation at the moment. So what better place to engage them than on the island itself? We've done various waste audits along the way, and we've seen the difficult situation we have there, which has been with a lot of not only the waste generation, but the waste stream is not really separated well. And a lot of, for instance, fruits are left on the ground, attracting more rats. So we're trying to change the system, but first we have to show, of course, evidence of it. And waste brings these little creatures, well, not so little really. Rats are very abundant on site, so this will need then a different approach. But the first part is to try to reduce this waste problem, and we have a vision for a zero waste Comino as well. Of course, that has entailed dozens and dozens of cleanups along the years, especially concentrated in the last 2 years. We've done a lot of work, not just on the beach here, but on other areas of the island. And still, every time we still find more things to clear. We're then also on another level, we're trying to increase our observations of wildlife and assist also in research projects. So we have just set up a wildlife camera. And also this is a bird body, which is like a bird feeder, which has its integrated camera system. So we can know who's visiting the area. And we've also set up a project on the Citizen Science website, which is iNaturalist. It's a platform which is used worldwide to collect information by visitors just posting pictures of any wildlife they encounter. And so we have a dedicated page for Comino, and we're collecting month after month more information there. We've just received our bat boxes, so we hope to install them soon. And this will also be a way for us to also have a better idea soon about the wildlife there, because we will also have data collection on site. And in parallel, soon we'll have this bird nest box, which is a prototype, which has just been created by local ornithologists and studied, and soon we'll also have a nest box for this bird here. We've just installed the first air pollution monitor on Comino, and it's something which can be viewed remotely as well. So we can monitor that and compare it to other places in Malta. And one other important thing, since one of the main difficulties is coming from people not knowing about the protected status of the island, is we created recorded messages in different languages. I put the code here so you can also have access to our dedicated site to Comino. This just links you to the recordings, but you can access the rest of the information. And these recordings are played on the boats, which leave daily with hundreds, well, actually it's thousands of tourists every day who visit the site. And we're trying to get more boat operators to collaborate and have this audio message being played, so people understand that they're going to a protected area, and that it is important to respect the place and not leave any damage behind. Yeah, that's it from my side. So we hope we're continuing with our efforts and hope to reach always more more people, and we'll soon be starting our second wave of questionnaires as well for stakeholders. So that's it from my side. Thank you. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Annelies.
Thank you,
Maybe, Pauline,
Annelies. Yeah,
we
we'll
can
share
move to the
again.
last. Perfect. And Irini, I think, will take over.
Okay, you should be able to see. Is it okay?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Oh, that should be the
okay.
last one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Okay. So thank you very much, Annelies, for this excellent review of the case. Really, it's amazing and fascinating the work that you do, and this is something also that it is important to look into when we are working with change communities. You know, what is the social capital? How can we increase it? How can we make people more engaged? So we would like to hear more about, well, from you now, because actually this is a part of the deep change model, feedback loops. So we are waiting from your feedback. And the question is this, based on your experience, where do you think that the deep change model can work well? And where do you see gaps and limitations in our current thinking? I guess you can use the chat, or you can raise your hands if you want to talk. Perlin, do you have a full view of the participants? So you can just
Yeah, I do. I think Marta wants to say something. I see one hand up.
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't know if you can hear me well.
Yes, no problem.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for the presentation. Amazing work. I am aware that you have summarized in half an hour, probably years and years of work. So please bear that in mind with my question, because one of the things that we have noticed is that the attributes of the communities in which we try to implement change affect the results. So if we are talking about a small homogeneous community, that is one thing. If you have plenty of heterogeneity, that is a different thing. So I am assuming that you consider in your steps process all these context-dependent variables. But that said, considering that in coastal communities, plenty of the audiences are plural, with a group of actors or stakeholders, whatever you want to call them, perceived as legitimate or acceptable, may not be perceived as such by others, even in the whole process of interactions. What for some group is, this is great, perfect interaction, this is enough, other may consider not enough. When we go to extremely polarized conflicts, that can escalate. So I wonder if conflict management, I assume, is embedded in the process, how you tackle that and what kind of advice from the lessons learned you can bring to the table. Thank you very much.
Anne-Marie, would you like to answer this? Would you like to start and I can complement?
Maybe you start and I can also start and you go on as you like.
Okay, so just a quick note from me. Yes, Marta, there are methodologies and tools for conflict resolutions. Also, there are other participatory methods and approaches, such as, for example, the deep democracy approach that can bring together people from very different points of view. But the point that we are making here is that, when we're trying to unify different theoretical approaches into a single model, that it takes a while. I mean, these changes cannot be done from one day to the other. Is what I said at the beginning of the presentation, that sometimes we rush into things. So you are absolutely right that if there are this, let's say, tensions within a community, you cannot just go ahead and implement a change. You have to deal with these tensions first, right? And yes, this is part of the Theory U model for sure.
Yes, and maybe how we, for example, did it now in the different cases, because there have always been tensions, of course, because there's always a conflict. I mean, Malta, there's someone who will earn lots of money because there's lots of houses and hotels built, right? So that is really the tricky bit, and that's why at the start to build the team is so a crucial point. Ideally, you're able to, first of all, listen to the others. I mean, that is usually what, from our experience, is the issue that comes to the surface first. So first of all, understand the other's position, understand the other's motives. And then you have to find a solution, because without listening to the others first, it's quite hard to go in contact and to build up relationships, right? But then, of course, you can apply, as Irene said, different tools that will help you to bring those people together, which is definitely not easy. It's a very crucial part and a very hard part. And that's why you always should take lots of time for this kind of preparation. Something we miss sometimes, to be honest, in our projects, because our projects last just for 3 years. And that is always a discussion within our group, because you won't be able to make change in 3 years, right? You need far more time, in particular when we're talking about behaviors of people. So your question is absolutely right. That's a crucial part of it.
Yeah, thanks. I think Robert wanted to say something.
Thank you, Perline. I wanted to agree very much with what Irene and Anne-Marie were saying here. It differs in a lot of circumstances. The question about parachuting people in, I don't think that is perhaps the way things have been done. The whole point about the change agents was that they should be part of the community in the first place, and therefore know the different interests and be credible with the different interests. And that was a very important point about the work. There was, however, one aspect of Marta's question which I just wanted to also comment on, and that was the question about where there was heterogeneity and homogeneity. And in the case studies we've run in the UK, it was a fairly heterogeneous situation with quite good conservation developed already, quite good sustainability and awareness of this. However, by rushing into the situation, by making haste at the beginning, as in the first stage of the Kotter, we managed to upset some of the local government representatives who felt that they were doing plenty already. And this actually led in discussion to the combining of the two methods, the Kotter and the U method, and moving away from a make haste to a generate enthusiasm approach at the beginning of the so rather than urgency at the beginning, generating enthusiasm in an appropriate way. So yes, there is a difference between situations where you've got reasonable homogeneity, but certainly this isn't intended to parachute people in. It's intended to help give people within the areas tools with which they can undertake projects themselves.
And can I say something more on that, Robert, about homogeneity and heterogeneity? To my mind, heterogeneity is not a problem, it's an asset, because you have all these different points of view. And it would be great if, even we talked a lot in theory, you and also with Anne-Marie, about the outliers, the people, the voices that are seldomly heard, okay? The people that are somehow kept on the border of things, okay? And it's really a shame not to incorporate these approaches in the change process, okay? So the key the key into that, I think, it's the way we listen, and practice listening is really, really important. It's not easy to do. You remember in one of I think our meetings, we've practiced listening, and it's human. I mean, we all download things, and we are based our reasoning on the things we know. Okay, well, it's really hard to change this. I understand it, but really, when we do, when we let go, then is where change comes.
Thank you, Irini. Does anybody else want to respond to the question or make a comment? I'll write the key discussion question in the chat. Okay, I'm not seeing any more hands up or anything in the chat.
Perlene, I just want to say that we can. I'm sure I know I talk for Anne-Marie now as well. That anyone can send us an email on approaches in case something comes up, or they just reflect on what has been said, and we are always available to answer their questions.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you all. I think we're coming to the end now. Thank you to all who have participated. The next webinar will be on the CHUI, the Conservation and Human Use Index, and will be presented by Phoebe Vayanou. It will be next month, the link should be also on Eventbrite. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
very
everyone.
much.